Hello guys, welcome back to the next tutorial. In previous tutorial we talked about how to create basic CSS selectors to locate elements. Now in this tutorial we will see how to create few more CSS selectors which will help us to locate elements. So let's get started. As I have already told you, we use hash sign with ID attribute value. Here a CSS selector would be hash and the ID attribute value, and we use dot with class attribute value. CSS selector would be dot and the class attribute value here. For name, we write it as it is under the square brackets. Here the CSS selector would be square brackets, and inside this square brackets we write name equals to name value. And for type, role and all other attributes we use this same approach. As per HTML convention, every element should have an ID and it should be unique. HTML doesn't allow multiple elements to share same ID, but all websites don't follow this convention. So you may see ID is not available for every element. If available, it may not have unique one. If that's the case, you can make it unique by appending tag or other attributes along with it. You can have multiple selectors here. There are different approaches, so let's check this one. First approach is to create CSS selector is append tag with ID. Tag is the input. Let's take an example. Inspect here and select this text field. Here you can see input is a tag and ID has a value ID search field. So tag equals to input and ID equals to ID search field. So CSS selector would be write tag first, then hash sign for the ID value. You can append tag with ID in such a way. There is another way to write it, that is input and then square brackets and then the ID value. You can write it same as we write for the name value. Both are same and we can use both approaches. ID with input tag and input tag in this form as well. Next one is append tag with class. Tag is input, as you have seen here. Input is a tag and the class attribute value is search field. So you can append input tag with the class attribute, same like input in start, then dot for the class attribute and then class attribute value. And another way is to write tag and then square brackets and the complete class attribute with value. So both are same. You can use class or ID, whatever you want. Okay, next one is append ID with class. You can append ID with class attribute value, like ID has a value ID search field and class has a value search field. So CSS selector would be hash sign for the ID attribute, so hash sign and ID attribute, then dot for the class attribute. Join both hash ID dot class attribute. And I'm appending different attributes with ID attribute. You can skip ID and append any other attributes to other attributes. Like you can append role with class, you can append role with type, and so on. Next one is append ID with name. As you know, ID value is ID search field and name value is Q. So CSS selector would be hash ID attribute value, then square brackets without space, and then the name attribute with its value. And next one is append class with name. You can do it same like the previous one. Class has a value search field and the name has a value Q. So dot and class attribute value, because we use dot with the class attribute value, we use hash with ID attribute value. So dot and class attribute value, then square bracket for the name, and name equals to name value. Let's try this one. Okay, we can append, copy this one, here let's take input tag and then hash this one, and you can see it's giving one by one and element is being highlighted here. You can use ID with name. See, it's working. And let's take an example of class. Dot search field, and see, it's also working. Next one is append tag with class and name. We can append multiple attributes together to make it unique. Let's suppose if ID is not unique, we can append it with class, and if both are not unique, then we can append another attribute to make it unique. So tag has a value input, class has a value search field, and name has a value Q. So we can, CSS selector would be input dot class attribute value and then square bracket for the name, and name equals to name attribute value. Let's take an example. We can append input tag and start, and see, it's giving me one by one, it's working. You can make any CSS selector. Okay, the next one is append multiple classes. Append multiple classes until you find unique selector. Here here let's take an example. Let's find the one where we have multiple classes. Okay, let's select this one. Okay, here you can see class attribute has multiple values: Python navigation space, main navigation space, do not print. We can use any of these values to pick this element, but we can't use all of these three values. Here here we have three different values for this class attribute, and but when you add these three values in code, you get an error. We usually pick one value which seems unique, but in case if one value does not fulfill the requirement and it's not unique, you can append another value along with it to make it unique. If there are more than two classes, you can append all of these classes together until you find the unique selector. And for this, if you want to join multiple classes, you can use dot, example dot class 1 without space, dot class 2, then dot class 3, and so on. Let's create it here. I'm selecting all of these 3 values and add it here. Let's create CSS selector dot remove space dot and then remove space again dot, and see, it's giving me one by one. You can remove one and see it's also working. I have written all values here just for an example. You can write 2 or all, it's your choice. Okay. The next one is select element on the basis of parent element. There are some cases when you are unable to find the unique selector by using above approaches. You need to create some complex CSS selectors. As I have already told you, you can go up and down in the hierarchy to create the CSS selector. Let's see by example. I want to select this label. Here is the label. I want to select this value, so let's copy this one and paste it here. See, it's giving me 1 by 2. It means it's not a unique value, but you can see it's appearing under this form tag, but the other value is appearing outside this form tag. So how to make it unique? Let's see. I'm hovering cursor over different tags and you can see elements are highlighted according to it. If I point this form tag, you can see this complete field is getting highlighted, which contains label, text field, and buttons. You can append form tag or its attribute along with class attribute of this label to make it unique, because the other element which is getting highlighted, this one, it's not appearing under this form. There might be some cases when your website contains multiple forms with unique names, but elements appearing under these different forms are not unique. So in this case, you can differentiate element by using parent element. So here, form is the parent element, it's a parent node, and all of these are the child nodes. Let's copy class attribute and write it at first, then add space and then the attribute value of child node, and see, it's giving me 1 by 1. And you are using form here to make this label element unique. You are not selecting the form, basically you need to select this label element but you are using this class attribute of form to make this label element unique. Let's see the syntax. I have told you need to write the parent element first, then add space, then add attribute of child element. So syntax would be dot class attribute of parent element space and then dot and class attribute of child node. To go down in the hierarchy, we use space. Okay. Select element on the basis of sibling elements. Another approach is, if you want to create selector on the basis of sibling element, how will you do this? Let's take an example. Here form is the parent element, and input, label, button, all of these are the child nodes. And we can say label, input and button, all of these are sibling elements. And suppose you want to select only that text field which has label, search this site, this one. How will you do this? For this, you will get the label attribute first and then append it with sibling attribute. Let's see syntax. For this, write attribute of first sibling element, then add space and then add plus sign. We for sibling elements, to concatenate sibling elements, we use plus sign, and then add space again and then write attribute of second sibling element. Example, parent node is the form, child nodes are first sibling element is label and second sibling element is text field. So CSS selector would be first sibling space plus space and second sibling. Let's create it here and remove it. Copy the class attribute value of label. Okay, this one, and add space, and now I want to select the text field. Add plus sign. Now select the text field and select the attribute value of ID. You can take class here. I'm taking ID value, add hash for the ID and this, and see, it's giving me one by one. It's selecting the input field here. So I'm getting this value on the basis of sibling element. Alright, so next approach is select direct child node. There is one more sign, that is right angle arrow, and it will target elements which are direct children of a particular element. For example, let's see, clear this one and let's take this one. Here you can see h1 tag and the anchor tag. Here you can see h1 tag is direct child of this div tag, and anchor tag is a direct child of this h1 tag, because anchor tag is appearing inside this h1 tag. It's a starting tag and it's an ending tag, and it's appearing inside this tag. Here for the input field, you can see these are children, but these are not direct children. because here is a span tag and here is a opening tag of span tag, and here is a closing tag for the span, and these elements are appearing outside this span tag, so these are not direct children. How to select this one? We can select okay, let's see syntax first. Syntax will be attribute of parent node, then space, then right angle arrow, then space, and then attribute of the child node. Let's see. Okay, copy the class attribute value, paste it here, see, and I want to select this anchor tag, so add space and then right angle arrow and then space, and let's add tag. You can add this href, but I'm adding anchor tag A and C. It's giving me 1 by 1, and it's a unique value as well. That's about it. Thanks for running this one, guys, and stay tuned for the next tutorial.